Hello again, and welcome to another comic book review and analysis. What I'm doing today is I'm going to be showing some old Superman comics that I have in my collection. They're actually, I always say Superman comics, they're actually action comics. I didn't collect the Superman title, I collected the action title. I don't remember exactly why. I guess I just, at the time, I remember when I first started collecting, whatever I saw in the action comics that caught my eye didn't really catch my eye in the Superman titles, and then of course I had a small allowance. I had to decide which comic I was going to buy, so I decided to buy the action comics. Now, some of these, well, the ones I'm going to show today were they came out before I was born. Some of them I got as hand-me-downs, and with some of them I bought as back issues, but I was collecting in the, let's say, the early 80s. So even though some of my comics are from the early 60s, they're a lot cheaper. They were a lot cheaper then than they would be today. For instance, I can get old action comic back issues from the 90s or the early 2000s now reasonably cheap. But even cover price if not a little bit over, as opposed to buying comics that would be now 60 years old. They would be a lot more valuable. And honestly, I don't know how valuable the old action comics are. They're okay, but they're not like super valuable. But they're a good collector's item if that's something that you enjoy. So I thought I would show them. Now, the very first one is actually a reprint. This is not issue 252 of Action Comics. It's a reprint of issue 252, and it was Supergirl's first appearance. So I have that reprint. The rest of them are actual first run issues. So my oldest comic that's a real action comic is number 272. Just to give a point of reference, they're up to well over 1,000 now. I think like 1,050. So 272 is pretty early. I want to say this was like the early 60s. In fact, let's see what the when this one was printed. I'm not going to be opening all of them. In fact, I'm not going to be opening many of them, or if any. But I think I'll open this one just to see the printing date of the earliest action comic that I own. So let's have a look here. I have to open this really carefully. Now, the action comics, they were doing this, I think, they were doing this off and on until the mid-80s when I stopped collecting them. I stopped collecting them because when the Crisis of Infinite Earths happened, which is the reboot of the DC comic line, I don't like reboots. I don't like the way the comic was heading. Back in this time period, the comics were very comic-y. They were just lighthearted fare. They weren't very violent or anything else, and they got a bit more intense, and I just didn't like that, so I stopped reading them. But anyway, and during this time, the comic books would have a main feature, which would start Superman, and then a backup feature a lot of times. And in the 60s, the backup feature was Supergirl, Superman's cousin. Anyway, this is one of those comics with that kind of backup feature. And the date of the comic, it is January 1961. So well before I was born. So that's when this comic is dated. Let's see, I don't want to, like I said, I'm really concerned about ruining the comic, but the cover price is 10 cents. Most of my earlier comics were 12 cents, so this is a very, very early comic. They actually started out as 10 cents in 1938, so they hadn't gone up yet by 1961, but technically they did, because the page count was a lot less than in the 30s, I believe. Anyway, that's this comic. So I'm already 4 minutes into this video, so I am not going to spend a lot of time on each issue the way I did with that one. I just wanted to show what the early ones looked like. Let me prop this up while I put this away. So I'm hoping you're enjoying this video showing some of the early Superman comics. Again, if comic books are not your thing, I understand, but if it's something you like to read, it's kind of neat to see some of the early issues. And like I said, this was before the comics got really intense and inappropriate. So that was issue 272. Now the next one I have would be issue 274. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've actually read these. I remember this one kind of vaguely, but not really. Again, early 60s. Oh, this one I remember. This is issue number 289. Oh, and just ignore the prices on the comics. Some of these plastics and boards I got later, so they don't really correspond with the comic. Although this one apparently does. Anyway, I remember this one. Without spoiling it, Supergirl is on the cover along with the girl of Superman's dreams, but it turns out that this girl actually is Supergirl in disguise, and it's something that it's a ruse that Superman and Supergirl cooked up together. Okay, so let's keep it moving. It's issue number 301, The Trial of Superman. Okay, I have 2 copies of that one. So if anyone wants to buy issue 301, please see me. Don't remember why I have 2 copies of it. Issue number 302. I hope this is clear. I know there might be a glare with the plastic. I apologize for that. Issue number 303. Oh, I remember this one. Yes. 303. And I remember this one too. This is issue number 304. 304. And I remember Superman is on a planet where all of these heroes are basically competing against each other in a kind of Olympics. Like I said before, the comic books of this era, they weren't very violent. It was just an escapist kind of comic booky kind of story. Issue number 305, where the villains are planning on using gold kryptonite on Superman. Gold kryptonite would take away Superman's powers. Back in this day, kryptonite came in different colors that had different properties, which was kind of neat. Issue number 306. 306. Oops, excuse me. Okay, where are we? Issue number 307. Oh, I remember this one as well. I don't want to spoil all of the plots, but I do remember this. Issue number 308. And as you can see, I'm not sure exactly when the comic price raised. I didn't notice, but as you can see now, it is 12 cents. So back in the 60s, kids would have to save an extra 2 cents on their allowance. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm sure they didn't appreciate the comic price rise. Although again, it was a long time coming. I mean, like I think by 1963 maybe it began to rise. 2 cents. So the comic was the same price for 25 years, even though the page numbers decreased a bit. Now, issue number 309. This one I remember distinctly. This was very poor timing, actually. So to explain, I'm gonna give the plot away for this one, and then I might stop here because I don't want this to go too long. But back during this time, Superman and Batman were best friends. Batman knew Superman's secret identity, and whenever Clark Kent needed to be in the same location as Superman, it would be Batman, the Master of Disguise, impersonating Clark Kent. Now, in this particular issue, all of the superheroes are awarded. They're given an award, and Clark Kent is the one who's giving the award. So the question is, how can that be? How can Superman and Batman be there as well as Clark Kent? Now, the reason why I said this issue has really bad timing is because it was just supposed to be a lighthearted issue where at the very end it's revealed that the President of the United States is the one who is impersonating Clark Kent, who at the time was John F. Kennedy. And he says something like he'll keep his secret to the grave, and Superman says, "Thank you for doing this. If I can't trust the president, then whom can I trust?" And that was not a sarcastic remark. Back then, people they respected the leaders of their nation, so it wasn't a sarcastic thing. And again, it was just supposed to be a light issue, but the issue happened to be released. It was already in the mail, but it happened to be released the day after JFK's assassination. So it really seemed like it was in poor taste, and they tried to recall the comic and everything. So this comic is a bit rare. Like I said, there's a little bit of a story behind that one. Next is issue number 310, and I think I mentioned before in previous video reviews that my favorite Superman villains were the Phantom Zone villains. They were the villains they were people from Krypton, just like Superman, and they were imprisoned by being put into another dimension. So they wound up surviving the destruction of Krypton, and sometimes they escaped from the Phantom Zone from their dimension, and they wreak havoc on Earth. And that's what this issue is. This is probably the first issue I have where the Phantom Zone villains are mentioned. I'm not saying that's the first issue with the Phantom Zone villains, but the first one that I have. Most of the ones I have are from the 70s and 80s, so this is from the 60s still. And Jewel Kryptonite is involved. So, issue 310. Okay, next is a two-parter, which I remember distinctly. Issue number 311, Superman, King of Earth. He's acting like a tyrant. And then, in issue number 312, still in that same story, there is a Clark Kent robot that is using kryptonite on Superman because he's a tyrant. And there's a big, and I don't want to give away the plot unless, if someone wants to know, they can ask me later. But if someone plans on reading it, I don't want to give away the plot of that. It's a pretty fun issue. Then issue number 317, The Rainbow Faces of Superman. It's again, these comics were very popcorny, so nothing really intense about it, but just a good, fun story. Issue number 319. Issue number 321. I remember this one as well. Okay, let's see what's next. Issue number 323 is next, it looks like. Oh, I remember this one vaguely. The next one I remember distinctly. I've always been a fan of insects, so as a kid, this cover and the whole comic kind of captured my interest a lot. Issue number 326. Giant dragonfly and a giant spider. Okay, I think I'm going to end this video here. We'll go to the next ones in this series later. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.